The Greater Manchester region is closely associated with the suffragette movement, thanks to Emmeline Pankhurst, who was born in Moss Side and founded the Women's Social and Political Union, WSPU, in 1903. Nowadays, the Pankhurst Museum is based on Nelson Street in Chawton-on-Medlock. What is perhaps less well known is that the borough of Oldham has an equally rich history of suffragettes and women's rights activists. Lydia Becker was born in 1827 in Manchester. She was inspired at the 1866 meeting of the National Association for the Advancement of Social Science by a paper called Reasons for the Enfranchisement of Women by the women's rights activist Barbara Bodishin. In 1867, Lydia convened the first meeting of the Manchester Women's Suffrage Committee, one of the first organizations of its kind in England. Later that year, she escorted Lily Maxwell, who had mistakenly appeared on the register of voters in Manchester, to the polling station. The returning officer found Maxwell's name on the list and allowed her to vote. Lydia was one of the keynote speakers at the first public meeting of the National Society for Women's Suffrage at the Free Trade Hall in Manchester in 1868 and made a resolution that women should be granted the same voting rights as men. A year later, she was among a group of campaigners who were successful in securing the vote for women in municipal elections. Having campaigned for the inclusion of women on school boards, she was one of 4 women elected to the Manchester School Board, on which she served from 1870 until her death in 1890. 1870 was also the year Lydia co-founded the Women's Suffrage Journal with Jessie Boucherette and began organizing speaking tours of women. An event in Manchester organized by Becker in 1874 was the first women's suffrage meeting attended by Emmeline Pankhurst, who was 15 at the time. Lydia also campaigned successfully in the Isle of Man for the right of women to vote in the House of Keys elections. They first voted in the elections of March 1881, the same year she became the chair of the Central Committee of the National Society for Women's Suffrage. Her family home was Foxdenton Hall in Chadderton. There is a blue plaque dedicated to her there. The town is also the location of Lydia Becker Way. Women received the same voting rights as men in 1928. The women of Oldham were central to the success of the suffragette movement and in getting women the right to vote. It is fitting that there are many reminders in the town of what they achieved. Stay tuned for more on the history of Greater Manchester. And please like, share, and subscribe.